Welcome to the Risk Wheelhouse, the podcast where we navigate the ever-changing seas of risk management and technology. Join your hosts, Ori Wellington and Sam Jones, as they steer you through the latest trends, insights, and strategies shaping the future of integrated risk management. Ready to chart a course towards success? Hop aboard and let's set sail into today's deep dive.
All right, so you're here with us today because you've got this big question looming, with Oracle deciding to sunset its GRC suite. What does that mean for the future of integrated risk management? What does it mean for you? We've got a whole bunch of research and articles here, and our goal today is to really kind of like boil it down. So you walk away not just feeling like, okay, I get it, but I'm actually ready to do something with this information. So to start off, we've got to address the elephant in the room. Oracle is pulling the plug on its GRC solution by May 2025. Why is this such a big deal? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I think it's a big deal because it's really forcing a lot of companies to look beyond these kind of like traditional GRC solutions that they've been using. The source material that we got from Wheelhouse Advisors highlights Oracle's shift towards like cloud native solutions, like their risk management cloud. But the thing is, this new platform, it doesn't really fully replicate all of the functionalities of their legacy GRC suite. So for companies that are really reliant on those specific functionalities, they're kind of scrambling to find alternatives and make sure that there's a smooth transition. It's also pushing the industry at large towards more modern and integrated risk management solutions. And I think that's where the real opportunity is.
Interesting. So it's not like a simple, one-to-one swap then. But you said opportunity there. What kind of opportunities are we talking about here? Is it just upgrading systems, or is there something a little bit more to it?
I think it's definitely more than just replacing systems. It's a chance to really kind of take a step back and rethink your whole approach to risk management. What functionalities are they losing? And maybe even more importantly, which of those were really critical and which were just kind of like legacy baggage. So this is a chance to streamline, to modernize, and to move towards a more proactive and strategic approach to risk management.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this could actually be a good thing in disguise. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's just make sure we're all on the same page here. You're talking about proactive and strategic risk management. And I know our listeners are probably pretty well versed in the basics of IRM, but let's go a little bit beyond that standard definition of those 4 core domains. How is this shift impacting each of those domains? So governance, risk and compliance, GRC, enterprise risk management, ERM, technology risk management, TRM, and operational risk management, RM.
Yeah, you're right. Our listeners probably don't need me to give them like a risk management 101 breakdown of each of those domains, but let's look at, how this move by Oracle is creating ripples. Take GRC, for example. We're seeing a shift from like a checklist-based approach to a more data-driven and continuous monitoring model. With ERM, the focus is shifting towards actually integrating risk considerations into strategic decision-making processes. And in TRM, technology is evolving so rapidly that companies need solutions that can adapt to new threats and vulnerabilities really in real time.
So it's a move away from static compliance to a more dynamic and agile approach to risk. That's a pretty big shift.
Exactly. And that agility is crucial in today's landscape. Each domain is becoming more and more intertwined. And organizations need solutions that can connect the dots between them. For instance, you could have a cyber incident, which falls under TRM. And that could quickly escalate into a reputational crisis, impacting GRC. And it could even affect strategic goals, which falls under ERM.
That's a great point. It really highlights how interconnected risk is in today's world. So back to Oracle for a second. What's driving their decision to move away from this more traditional model of GRC? It seems like a pretty radical move for such a big player.
Well, according to the research that we have here, it looks like it's a combination of factors. First, you've got the rise of cloud-based solutions. Platforms like Oracle Risk Management Cloud. They offer scalability, automation, and real-time monitoring that you just can't match with traditional systems. But it's not just about technology for technology's sake. Customer expectations are changing as well. Organizations are becoming more sophisticated in their approach to risk. They want advanced analytics, they want proactive risk identification, and they want tools that can help them actually make strategic decisions.
So it sounds like the old GRC model was starting to feel a bit like horse and buggy in the age of self-driving cars. Right. So if Oracle is pushing towards the cloud, who are the companies that are best positioned to capitalize on this shift?
There are several key players that are emerging as leaders in the integrated risk management space. The source material that we have specifically mentions Diligent, NAVEX, Riskonnect, Mitratech, and ServiceNow as companies that are offering robust solutions that are really well aligned with what the market is demanding.
So these companies are already a step ahead in terms of offering these integrated solutions that businesses are looking for.
Yeah, they're investing heavily in cloud-based platforms, AI, and real-time analytics. And those are the very things that Oracle is emphasizing now with their risk management cloud. I think the key differentiator for these companies is going to be their ability to seamlessly integrate data and insights across all four of those IRM domains, so they can provide a holistic view of risk.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of Oracle kind of like shaking things up, and we've got this new wave of companies stepping in to fill that void. But let's bring this back to our listener for a second. You're using Oracle GRC right now, and all of a sudden you get this announcement that it's being sunset. What do you do? What are your next steps? How do you navigate this transition successfully?
Well, the first step is to really understand what functionalities you're losing and how those gaps are going to impact your current risk management processes. So doing that gap analysis is going to be crucial. For example, if you relied heavily on Oracle GRC for vendor risk management, and the new platform doesn't offer that functionality, you need to identify alternative solutions pretty quickly. That might involve researching and evaluating new vendors like the ones that we just mentioned, or it could mean adapting your existing processes to bridge the gap.
That makes sense. So it's not just about finding a new system. It's about understanding how those missing features are going to create these ripple effects and then finding ways to address them, whether it's through new technology or maybe even changes to processes.
Right. But I want to emphasize this isn't just about patching holes. It's an opportunity. You have a chance to reevaluate your entire approach to risk management. You might even find that some of those features that are missing weren't really serving you that well anyway. And you can build something better, something that's more aligned with your current and future needs.
I like that. Turning a potential crisis into an opportunity for growth. But I'm imagining that trying to do this gap analysis and figure out what those next steps are, it could feel pretty overwhelming. Where do you even begin?
That's where having a clear roadmap is so important. And luckily, the source material that we have offers some practical guidance. One of the key recommendations is to prioritize solutions that leverage AI and real-time analytics, because these technologies are really essential for proactive risk management. They allow you to identify and address potential issues before they spiral out of control.
So it's less about reacting and more about being proactive. I'm sensing a theme here. But how does AI actually fit into all of this? I know we're hearing a lot about AI these days, but what does that actually look like in the context of IRM?
Well, AI can really transform every aspect of IRM, but let's look at a specific example. Let's say you're a financial institution and you're concerned about fraud. In the past, you might have relied on systems that flagged suspicious transactions based on predefined criteria. But with AI, you can now analyze millions of transactions in real time, looking for those subtle patterns and anomalies that human analysts might miss. The AI can learn from past fraud cases, identify new tactics that are being used by fraudsters, and constantly adapt to stay ahead of the game. So this proactive approach that's powered by AI can really significantly reduce your exposure to financial crime.
Wow. So it's like having this, super-powered detective on your team.
Yeah.
Constantly scanning for threats. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I got to ask, is this level of technology only available to these big companies with deep pockets? Can smaller businesses even get involved in this AI world?
That's a common misconception, actually. AI is becoming increasingly accessible to organizations of all sizes, thanks to the rise of cloud-based solutions. These solutions allow businesses to leverage the power of AI without having to make those massive upfront investments in infrastructure and expertise.
That's good to hear. So it means that even small businesses can benefit from these advanced tools. And it's not just about AI, right? There are other technologies that are transforming the IRM landscape as well.
Oh, absolutely. You've got things like blockchain, which can create these really secure and transparent audit trails, so it makes compliance activities a lot easier to manage. And you've got automation, which can streamline workflows. And that frees up risk professionals from doing all those tedious manual tasks so they can focus on more strategic initiatives.
Okay, my inner tech geek is getting really excited about all of this. But before we get carried away with all the shiny new toys, I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the human element in all of this. How do we make sure that we're using these powerful technologies responsibly and ethically?
That's such a crucial question. As we embrace AI and automation, we have to keep human values front and center. We need to be mindful of potential biases in algorithms. We have to make sure that data is being used responsibly and transparently, and prioritize accountability in all of our decision-making. At the end of the day, technology should be augmenting human capabilities, not replacing them.
Well said. I think that's the perfect point to transition to the next part of our discussion, where we'll explore the skills and strategies that risk professionals will need to develop to thrive in this new tech-driven world of IRM. But before we move on, I just want to acknowledge that all of this can feel a bit overwhelming. The pace of change is incredible.
Yeah.
And it's easy to feel like you're constantly trying to catch up.
I understand. It's a lot to take in. But that's exactly why we're having this conversation. The key is to approach it with curiosity and a willingness to learn. Embrace the challenge, ask questions, and don't be afraid to experiment.
Great advice. All right, let's take a quick pause here to let everything sink in. And when we come back, we'll delve into the future of IRM and explore what this means for you, the risk professional, on a personal and professional level.
Are you ready to see risk management in action? At Wheelhouse Advisors, we've launched a new YouTube channel dedicated to integrated risk management. You'll find quick explainers, insights from our IRM Navigator research reports, highlights from the Risk Journal, and conversations from the Risk Wheelhouse podcast. We're covering the topics that matter most to executives and risk leaders, from AI governance and cyber insurance to operational resilience and regulatory change. Every video is designed to help you anticipate risks, adapt with confidence, and build resilience in a digital-first world. In our first video, we explain how ISO 42001, the EU AI Act, and the NIST AI Risk Management Framework can work together as a unified playbook for AI risk. Subscribe today at youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv and get the latest insights delivered directly to you. That's youtube.com/@wheelhouseadv. Subscribe now and stay ahead of the risks that matter most.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about all this new tech in IRM and how exciting it is. And let's be real, sometimes a little overwhelming too.
Yeah.
But technology is just a tool. It's the people who really make it work. So let's talk about you, the risk professional out there. What are the skills you're going to need to really thrive in this crazy landscape that's changing so fast?
Well, that's where I think we go from the what to the how. Obviously, you've got to have the technical skills, understanding AI, data analytics, cybersecurity. But honestly, these days, those are almost like the bare minimum. I think what's really going to set you apart are the softer skills.
Softer skills. That sounds a little vague. Can you give me like a few concrete examples?
Sure, think about it. You've got this powerful AI engine that's crunching through mountains of data, spitting out all these insights. But then what do you do with them? You need to be able to communicate those insights clearly and persuasively to all sorts of different audiences. That means, tailoring your message to the board, to your technical teams, to the people on the front lines, all while connecting the dots between, the risks and the business goals.
So it's not just about understanding the data. It's about being a storyteller almost,
Yeah.
a translator, a bridge builder.
Exactly. And don't forget, critical thinking is really important too. AI can highlight these patterns in the data, but it can't tell you what they mean. So you need to be able to look at that data, analyze it, challenge assumptions, and ask the right questions. Remember, technology is there to help you. It's not there to replace you.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can see how those skills become even more important as risk management becomes more integrated with like overall business strategy. But there's another piece to this, right? It's not just about individual skills. It's about how risk management teams need to adapt as a whole. So what are some of the big changes you're seeing there?
I think one of the biggest changes is the move towards more agile and collaborative ways of working. Think about the old model. You do risk assessments once a year. You've got all these siloed teams reports that nobody reads. That just doesn't cut it in today's world.
Yeah, that old school approach does not sound very fun. So what's the alternative? How do we make risk management more agile?
It's about breaking down those silos. Instead of these isolated assessments, you're seeing a lot more continuous monitoring and real-time data analysis.
Yeah.
Risk teams are becoming more embedded in different business units. They're collaborating on projects right from the start. So this allows for faster decision-making. and a much more proactive approach to identifying and mitigating risks.
Okay, so let's say I'm a risk professional who spent my whole career in that kind of traditional risk management role. What's my first step towards becoming this, agile, collaborative, tech-savvy risk ninja that we've been talking about?
Well, the good news is you don't need to learn how to code overnight. The most important thing is to start with a growth mindset. Be curious, explore those new technologies, experiment with different approaches. Look for chances to collaborate with people outside your team. And maybe, most importantly, you need to advocate for change within your organization.
Advocate for change. That sounds a little scary, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not in a senior position. How do you even start to influence that kind of organizational shift?
It starts with building relationships and really showing people the value of this more integrated approach to risk management. You can point to examples of other companies that have made this transition and been successful. You can try to quantify the potential benefits like, increased efficiency or reduced costs by using AI and automation. And honestly, don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Sometimes all it takes is one person who's really passionate to get things moving.
Okay, that's actually really inspiring. It's a good reminder that anyone can play a role in shaping the future of risk management. So we've talked about the skills and the organizational changes. But let's zoom out again and look at the bigger picture. What does all this mean for the future of risk management as a profession?
I think we're on the verge of a massive transformation. Risk management is going from this back office function that's just focused on compliance to something that's actually a strategic driver of success for businesses. And this is creating all sorts of new opportunities for risk professionals, especially for the ones who are willing to adapt and learn new skills.
So it's not just about, avoiding threats anymore. It's about finding and seizing opportunities.
Exactly. It's becoming more about understanding and navigating uncertainty, helping organizations make smarter decisions, and ultimately achieve their goals. It's about turning risk into a competitive advantage.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. And I imagine that this transformation is going to impact every industry.
Absolutely. Every business has to deal with risk no matter what industry they're in. And as the world becomes even more complex and interconnected, the need for good risk management is only going to get bigger.
So you've given us a lot of great insights here, but I'm curious, where do you see this all heading in the long run? What do you think risk management will look like in, say, 5 or 10 years?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. But if I look at the research, it seems like the focus on integration, data analytics, and technology-driven solutions is only going to get stronger. But I think the real game changer is going to be AI and machine learning, not just to identify risks, but to actually predict them and prevent them before they even happen.
Predictive risk management. It sounds kind of like science fiction, but I can see how that would be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's closer than you might think. Companies are already starting to use AI to do things like anticipate problems in their supply chains, identify potential fraud, even figure out the impact of new regulations. As these technologies keep getting better, the possibilities are really endless.
That's both exciting and a little scary at the same time. It really shows how important it is for risk professionals to keep learning and adapting.
Definitely. The only thing that's constant in the world of risk management is change. You've got to embrace that challenge. Stay curious and never stop learning. That's how you succeed in this field.
Well said. This has been a great discussion. I know our listeners are getting a lot to think about here. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to talk about one more thing that I think often gets overlooked. And that's the role of leadership in all of this.
Oh, that's a really important point. You could have the best technology, the most talented people, but without good leadership, it won't matter.
So what does good leadership actually look like in this context?
It starts with recognizing that risk management isn't just about compliance. It's a critical part of the overall business strategy. Leaders need to champion this change. They need to make sure that risk is part of every decision. And they need to empower risk professionals to be real partners in achieving business success.
So it's about building a culture where everyone understands that risk is their responsibility and where risk management is seen as something that adds value instead of just being a roadblock.
Exactly. Leaders need to set the tone, allocate resources, and make sure that everyone is accountable for managing risk effectively.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We talked about what Oracle's decision means, the changes happening in IRM, the importance of technology, leadership, and culture. But let's try to bring it all together and answer that big question we started with. What does this all mean for you, the listener, who's dealing with all this complexity in your own organization?
I think the main takeaway is this. The world of risk management is changing really fast. But all this change is creating a lot of opportunity. If you have a growth mindset, you develop your skills, you advocate for change, and you take advantage of technology, you can not just survive, but really thrive in this field.
I love that positive outlook. And I think it's the perfect way to transition to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some practical strategies and resources that may help you on this journey. But for now, let's just take a minute to let everything sink in, and then we'll come back ready to turn all these insights into action. Welcome back to the deep dive. So much to think about, right? That last conversation got me thinking about the future a lot. So I have to ask, what's your overall take on the future of IRM? What are the big things we should be watching out for?
I think the future of IRM is really all about convergence. We're seeing a convergence of different risk domains and technologies, even mindsets.
Okay, so break that down a bit for me. What does that convergence actually look like, day to day?
Well, let's start with the convergence of different risk domains. The lines between GRC, ERM, TRM, and ORM, they're getting blurrier all the time. A cyber attack, for example, isn't just a technology risk anymore. It can impact compliance, your reputation, even your strategic goals. So companies need to be looking at risk from a unified perspective. They can't have these siloed departments operating in isolation.
So it's like that old saying, everything is connected, right? A butterfly flaps its wings in TRM and suddenly there's a hurricane in GRC.
Yeah, exactly. And this interconnectedness, it's only going to increase as technologies like AI and automation become even more important.
Okay, you mentioned this convergence of technologies too. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, we're moving away from these point solutions and toward these integrated platforms that can pull data from all across the organization. I mean, think about it. You've got risk data in your finance systems, your HR systems, your operations systems. It's everywhere. The real challenge and also the opportunity is to connect all those dots and get this holistic view of risk.
Whoa, that sounds like a data management nightmare. How can companies even begin to wrangle all that information into something that they can actually use?
That's where the convergence of mindsets comes into play. We need risk professionals who not only understand the technology, but also understand data and the business side of things. They need to be able to take that data and figure out what it means to turn it into recommendations and then communicate it to everyone in the organization.
So it's not just about being a risk expert anymore. It's like you're a data translator, a storyteller, even a strategic advisor.
Exactly. And those are the skills that are going to be in super high demand as organizations are trying to figure out this whole complex risk landscape.
All this talk about the future is really interesting, but it's also kind of scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in all the hype and feel like you're already falling behind. What advice would you give to our listeners who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed? Where should they be focusing their time and energy right now?
I think the most important thing is to focus on those core IRM principles. It's like building a house. You need a solid foundation before you start adding all the fancy stuff.
So back to basics. But we've been talking about how the basics are changing. So how do you stay grounded when the ground is constantly shifting?
It's about understanding those timeless principles, things like your organization's risk appetite, setting clear roles and responsibilities, making sure everyone's aware of risk, and just committing to continuous improvement. Those principles will always be relevant no matter what new technologies or trends come along.
Okay, that's actually really reassuring. So it's not about chasing every new shiny thing that pops up. It's about building a solid foundation using proven principles. But let's be real, you can't completely ignore the technology side of things, can you?
No, of course not. Technology is super important. Embrace it, explore it, experiment with it. But always remember that technology is a tool. It's not a magic solution.
Right, and it's a tool that keeps changing. So how can risk professionals keep up with all the new developments in technology?
Talk to your peers. Go to industry events. Read articles and research. There are tons of resources out there to help you stay up to date. And don't be afraid to try out new tools and technologies. You never know what you might learn.
That's good advice. So it's all about continuous learning, networking, and being willing to try new things. But beyond those individual efforts, what about the organization as a whole? What can companies do to create a culture where innovation and risk intelligence are really valued?
One of the best things that companies can do is to build a dedicated innovation team within their risk management department. This team can focus on exploring those new technologies, testing out new approaches, developing pilot programs. Creating a space specifically for innovation will help organizations stay ahead of the curve and be ready for anything in this crazy, fast-changing world.
That's a great idea. It's like an internal think tank just for risk management. But I know creating a whole new team isn't always realistic, especially for smaller companies. Are there other things that companies can do to encourage innovation?
The most important thing is to build a culture where people feel safe to take risks, to share ideas, and to learn from their mistakes. So you need to encourage open communication, reward people for experimenting, and celebrate both successes and failures. Those are the learning opportunities.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel like they can challenge how things have always been done and really push the limits.
That's it. And when you have that kind of culture, innovation will happen naturally.
Okay, well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. We've talked about what Oracle's decision means, the changes happening in IRM, and the importance of technology, leadership, and culture. But is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the future of risk management is about making the world more resilient and sustainable. It's about making good decisions, managing uncertainty, and building organizations that can face any challenge that comes their way.
I love that it's not just about protecting what you have or following the rules. It's about building a better future for everyone. So on that inspiring note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive into integrated risk management. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Oracle's exit to the evolving landscape of IRM and how important technology, leadership, and culture really are. I hope you found this discussion as interesting as I have, and remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing those boundaries in the world of risk management. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next time with another topic that's sure to challenge your thinking. Until then, stay curious and stay ahead of the curve.
That wraps up another episode of the Risk Wheelhouse. Thank you for spending time with us at Wheelhouse Advisors today. We hope you found the conversation insightful and actionable for your organization's risk strategies. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. If you're looking for more in-depth analysis and thought leadership on risk technology, be sure to visit the Riskonnect Journal at theriskonnectjournal.com. It's your go-to source for comprehensive articles, expert interviews, and the latest trends shaping the industry. Subscribe today to stay informed. For any inquiries or feedback, please contact us directly at info@wheelhouseadvisors.com, or feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn and x.com and share your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. Visit wheelhouseadvisors.com for more information and resources. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, navigate wisely.